Before kings ruled and ziggurats rose over southern Mesopotamia, something quieter was taking shape in the north. In our episode about Ubaid, we explored the Ubaid culture, a society that laid the foundations for cities like Ur and Eridu. But today we turn our gaze to the people the Ubaids eventually encountered, not in conquest but in coexistence. The Halaf culture flourished in the highlands of northern Mesopotamia over 7,000 years ago. These were not city builders or warriors. They were artisans, farmers, and spiritual thinkers. They lived in circular homes, painted ceramic masterpieces, and formed one of the most peaceful and visually expressive Neolithic societies ever discovered. This is the story of how life, art, and legacy intertwined in the Halaf world, a civilization that left no written words but spoke volumes through clay, community, and creativity. The Halaf culture first appeared around 6500 BC, during the late Neolithic period. It emerged in a broad region stretching across what is now northern Syria, northern Iraq, and parts of southeastern Turkey, particularly along the Habur River valley. The name comes from Tel Halaf, an archaeological site discovered in 1899 by Max von Oppenheim. Though much later layers were excavated there, the prehistoric material at its lowest levels defined an entirely new cultural horizon. Archaeologists would go on to uncover dozens of Halafian sites, including Tel Arpachia, Tepe Gaura, Yarim Tepe, and Chagar Bazar. These villages were often small, no more than 20 to 150 people, but they were tightly knit, carefully planned, and rich in both material culture and spiritual expression. Daily life in a Halaf village was quiet, rhythmic, and deeply tied to the land. Most people lived in round, domed houses called toloi. These were constructed from mud brick or packed clay, sometimes built atop stone foundations. The toloi may have had religious or communal significance in addition to being homes. Their circular shape evoked cosmic balance and unity. Farming was the backbone of Halaf life. They cultivated emmer wheat, barley, lentils, and flax. They also raised sheep, goats, and cattle, and there is some evidence of early irrigation in valley regions. Villages often had central storage facilities and open courtyards used for grain processing or pottery firing. Life was communal, with tasks shared across households, and no evidence of centralized political control or kingship. The Halafians seem to have lived in egalitarian societies without the elite stratification seen in later periods. Yet they still developed an incredibly rich symbolic and material world. Of all Halafian achievements, it is their painted pottery that has captured the imagination of archaeologists and artists alike. These ceramics were not merely utilitarian. They were masterpieces, thin-walled, highly symmetrical, and decorated with intricate geometric and floral designs in red, black, and cream. Designs included spiral motifs, cross-hatching, and checkerboards, stylized plant forms, abstract shapes that may have held ritual meaning. The beauty of Halaf pottery was matched by its technological sophistication. Firing temperatures and painting techniques demonstrate expert craftsmanship. These pots were widely distributed, appearing even in remote highland villages. Their consistent styles suggest either centralized workshops or long-standing artistic conventions passed through generations. Some archaeologists believe this pottery played a symbolic or ceremonial role, perhaps used in feasts, burials, or communal rituals. Others see it as a sign of social status or inter-village exchange networks. Regardless of interpretation, Halaf pottery is a defining feature of one of the world's first artistic cultures. Halafian spiritual life is not recorded in text, but it is etched into clay and stone. Dozens of terracotta figurines have been found in Halaf sites, many of which depict seated or standing women with exaggerated hips and breasts. These may represent fertility goddesses, ancestral mothers, or protective spirits. The recurrence of female symbolism suggests a matrifocal religious orientation, common across the Neolithic Near East. It speaks to a worldview centered on fertility, continuity, and the sacredness of life-giving forces. There are also stamp seals, some of the earliest in Mesopotamian history. These may have been used to mark ownership, sanctify goods, or act as ritual objects, possibly the beginning of symbolic bureaucracy. Religious activity likely took place in domestic spaces, small shrines, or communal buildings. No temples have been found, but the architecture suggests areas set aside for collective rites, feasting, or storytelling. Around 5500 BC, a major cultural transition began. From the south, the Ubaid culture, with its rectangular houses, elaborate irrigation, and more stratified society, began to expand northward into Halaf territory. But what happened next was not war, it was coexistence. At sites like Tel Aqab, Tel Zaydan, and Tel Masaih, archaeologists found Halaf and Ubaid pottery side by side. These layers, known as the Halaf-Ubaid transitional phase, show blended architecture, shared tools, and even hybrid ceramic styles. This is no sign of destruction or cultural rupture. Villages continued to function, population centers remained stable, and material culture evolved gradually. This peaceful merging of traditions suggests one of the earliest examples of cross-cultural integration in the ancient world. The Halafians, far from being overrun, helped shape the very fabric of what would become Mesopotamian civilization. By around 5000 BC, the Halaf cultural identity had blended into the expanding Ubaid sphere. but their legacy endured in many forms. The Toloi architectural style influenced later storage and temple structures. Halaf pottery designs appeared in Ubaid and even early Uruk layers. Communal lifeways and symbolic traditions fed into more complex religious institutions. Just as importantly, the Halaf-Ubaid peaceful synthesis laid a foundation for the first true cities. Unlike later conquests or collapses, this was a quiet revolution, one built not on hierarchy or domination, but on shared practice, exchange, and respect. The Halaf culture stands as cultural root system, unseen but essential, nourishing the tree of civilization from below. The Halafians did not leave behind epic myth or monumental temples, but what they did leave, the swirl of red on a pot, the carve of a domed home, the imprint of a carved seal, tells a different kind of story. It's a story of beauty without brutality, of cooperation over conquest, of a peaceful Neolithic civilization in Mesopotamia whose legacy lives not in words, but in patterns, practices, and pottery. If you have enjoyed this dive into one of the history's most artistic and harmonious cultures, please like, comment, and subscribe to Historidom for more long-form documentaries on the forgotten roots of the ancient world. Thank you for watching. See you in the next episode.